I had spent 4 years working as an administrator at a typical manufacturing company. The company was involved in something related to automobile engines, but the technical details were lost on me. My focus was on getting the job done, and that was enough for people to see me as a professional and diligent worker. In today's world, it was common for men to work as administrators just as much as women could be mechanics. As long as I completed my tasks, I stayed under the radar, just that guy in the admin team. Looking back, maybe I should have anticipated that things would eventually surface, but nothing could have prepared me for what I'm about to share. I was the only man in the administrative department, working alongside 5 women under the leadership of Lucy, our head administrator. We all got along well enough, but that's where it ended for me. I never really felt like part of the group, though there was no hostility from the others. They were friendly, but I knew I wasn't going to be invited for a night out with them. For what felt like ages, I had been cross-dressing. It started with secretive moments of rifling through female relatives' drawers, then evolved into lingering over lingerie catalogs during my teenage years. Now, I had amassed a rather impressive collection of clothes, shoes, and underwear. Living alone gave me the privacy I needed to indulge in my fetish. I didn't actually want to be a woman, but I loved the sensuality and confidence I felt when I dressed up as one. It always seemed unfair that women had all the glamour and fun. When I went out dressed up, I had a confidence I lacked in my everyday life. My appearance certainly helped. Part of it was luck and genetics, but a lot of it came down to diet and exercise, which helped me maximize my physical attributes. I was naturally tall and lean minus 5'17" in my stockings. Regular gym workouts kept me toned without adding bulk, leaving me with slender, shapely legs and a slim upper body. At 24, I looked youthful and fresh, with my mother's genes gifting me a delicate, boyish face. Because of this, I often felt the need to butch up during the day, opting for crisp white shirts and shapeless trousers to present a more masculine image. Like many crossdressers, I had gone through phases of trying to quit. I'd thrown all my clothes into bins and sworn off the habit, usually after a close call, but it always found its way back into my life. At that point, I was content with my dual lifestyle. I had a stable job during the day and an alternative female persona for evenings and nights out. Each part of my life stayed completely separate, never overlapping, unless something truly extraordinary happened. And this is the story of one of those rare occasions which led to much more than I ever expected. It was a Friday, and work officially ended at noon. However, I had too much to do, so I stayed late into the afternoon, but I had other plans for the evening. That night, I was meeting up with some of my girlfriends, my fellow crossdressers, in town. We had planned a weekend getaway and booked a minibus to take us down to London. The plan was to stay in a luxurious 5-star hotel, unwind, and spend our evenings at some of our favorite alternative clubs. I was beyond excited to get dolled up and head out for this mini-adventure. The big challenge was that I needed to be ready by 6:00 p.m., which didn't leave enough time to go home, change, and get back into town. This meant I had to break my golden rule of never mixing business with pleasure. I would have to get ready at work, bringing my weekend clothes with me. My weekend bag, containing everything I needed, was hidden under my desk, out of sight. By 3:00 p.m., nearly everyone had left for the weekend. A few engineers and executives were still around, but I hadn't seen any of the women from my department. My plan was to make a quick dash to the ladies' room, where I could change safely. Most of the lights had been turned off, and the day was already fading into a winter dusk outside. With my work wrapped up, it was finally time to get dressed. The women's restroom was conveniently located just down the corridor, out of sight from the office door. I hadn't seen anyone pass by in about 30 minutes, and I was pretty sure the building was almost empty. Still, there was a slight thrill as I grabbed my weekend bag and prepared to sneak out. My heart was racing as I left the office and headed left down the corridor. I paused at the water cooler, taking a slow drink and pretending to read one of the company's motivational posters on the board. After waiting another 5 minutes without anyone coming out of the ladies' room, I thought, This is it. All the admin girls have left. It's now or never. Feeling confident, I slung my weekend bag over my shoulder and made my way swiftly and quietly down the corridor, past the men's room. With one last cautious glance behind me, I slipped into the safety of the women's restroom. My heart was still racing as the automatic lights flickered on, but to my relief, the room was empty, thankfully. To be extra safe, I chose the second-to-last cubicle and locked the door behind me. Now I could finally relax and start my transformation. I quickly stripped out of my work clothes and stuffed them into the carrier bag I brought along. The night before, I had indulged in a long, luxurious bath, waxing, shaving, and moisturizing my entire body. Standing there, I took a moment to enjoy the sensation of my hands gliding over my soft, smooth skin. Sitting down, I pulled on a pair of silky hold-up stockings, feeling the light fabric slide effortlessly up my freshly waxed legs. Then I zipped up my black leather boots, which stopped just below the knee. At least now, if anyone happened to see under the door, I'd appear normal in case of an emergency. Now feeling much more at ease, I could fully focus on perfecting my feminine image. The first step was attaching my beloved C-cup silicone breast forms, carefully blending the edges with some foundation to make them look as natural as possible. Once they were in place, I took out my pocket mirror and started applying makeup, aiming for just enough to enhance my delicate, boyish features without overdoing it. I always kept my look subtle, allowing me to pass without drawing too much attention. I began with a layer of my favorite foundation, followed by a light dusting of blush to highlight my cheekbones. Next, I chose a dusky eyeshadow to complement my hazel eyes, carefully applying it before adding a cool grey eyeliner to open them up. After that came the first coat of mascara, adding a little extra definition to my lashes. In school, art had always been my favorite subject, and now it was paying off in an unexpected way. My skill with a brush made applying makeup second nature. For the final touch, I added a bold splash of crimson lipstick, finishing with a hint of lip gloss to make my lips pop. Now, my transformation was well underway. Tonight, I was aiming for elegant and stylish. Standing up, I slid into a delicate lacy black thong, followed by the matching bra, both soft and sensual against my freshly moisturized skin. Then came the pièce de résistance, my killer little black dress. This dress was my go-to for a night out, a real confidence booster. It hugged in all the right places, disguising any flaws and fitting like a dream. The hemline ending just below my stocking tops was a cheeky touch, giving the outfit a hint of allure without being over the top. Next, I applied my pre-prepared crimson-painted nails, carefully pressing them into place. While waiting for the glue to set, I brushed on a second coat of mascara, fluttering my lashes playfully at myself in the mirror. Feeling the transformation nearly complete, I finally reached for my favorite brunette bob wig. Taking it out of its box, I carefully adjusted it into place. The modern cut, with its angled layers framing my face and a sleek fringe, was perfect. It was like slipping into the final piece of the puzzle, bringing the whole look together. Now, standing there in my heels, I was ready to face the night. The look I had put together perfectly matched the young classy vibe I was aiming for. With a little luck, I might even catch someone's eye at the bar tonight. Feeling satisfied with my appearance, I cautiously opened the cubicle door and stepped out, eager to check myself out in the bathroom mirror. "Whoa, cute honey," I thought, admiring the reflection staring back at me. The dress was doing wonders, and I silently thanked the gym instructor whose routines had worked magic on my figure, especially my now shapely derriere. Just a few small adjustments, an extra touch of blusher here, smoothing out a stray hair there, and I was almost ready to make my grand exit. I turned back to the cubicle to collect my makeup bag from the toilet seat, setting it down by the middle sink. Then, leaning down, I scooped up my day clothes, stuffing them neatly into my weekend bag. With the final touches in place, I was ready to hit the streets and start my weekend adventure in style. Fully dressed now, I was enjoying the snug fit of my outfit. As I bent down to pick up my bag, the hem of my little black dress crept teasingly up the back of my thighs, revealing just a hint of stocking top and bare skin. I paused, savoring the luxurious stretch running down my leg, feeling the fabric glide over my body. It felt so good, until I froze. The outer door suddenly swung open, shattering the quiet. My heart skipped a beat, and in a panic, I straightened up quickly, unsure of what to do. The inner door opened, and the unmistakable sound of heels tapping against the tiled floor echoed in the room. I could feel my pulse racing as I tried to stay calm. Okay, keep calm and casual, I told myself, forcing a steady breath. My mind raced through escape options, but there was no turning back now. I had to play it cool and hope for the best. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain the woman who had just entered could hear it too. Clutching my bag for dear life, I returned to the sink where I'd left my makeup kit, trying to keep my head low enough for my wig's fringe to shield my face. If luck was on my side, she'd head straight for a cubicle, and I could make a quiet escape without any awkward encounters. I glanced up at the mirror for a split second, reassured by how well I passed. It was just a shame I couldn't risk a final touch-up to my makeup. But before I could plan my next move, I felt her presence behind me, and then she settled at the sink next to mine. My stomach dropped. Why had I taken the middle sink? I cursed internally. Now I had no choice but to stay and act casual. If I bolted now, it would definitely seem odd. Think, I told myself, reaching for a makeup brush as if I was finishing up. I pretended to fix my eyeliner, praying my hands wouldn't shake too much, and hoping she'd finish and leave without a second glance. I took out my blusher brush, doing my best to appear calm and composed, even though inside I was anything but. As I flicked the brush lightly over my cheeks, I glanced to my left and my stomach flipped again. It was Sally, one of the senior executives, fussing with her hair and spraying it with a small can of hairspray. Idiot. I silently cursed myself. How could I have forgotten about Sally? She was one of the few women who worked late at the office. Of course she could be here. God, these long meetings play havoc with my hair. Sally sighed, fussing at her reflection. I'm sure it's the air conditioner, but I always come out of that room looking a mess. For a split second, panic surged again. But somehow, I managed to respond, my voice soft and feminine. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mumbled, desperately trying to sound casual while mentally crossing my fingers that she wouldn't look too closely. Sally didn't seem to notice anything out of the ordinary, continuing to tame her hair with a slight frown. My heart was still racing, but at least the small talk was buying me some time. And I'm supposed to be going out tonight, she continued, sounding slightly frustrated. Now it's too late to go home, and I'm stuck in these stuffy work clothes. She still seemed too preoccupied with her hair to pay me much attention, so I allowed myself a longer glance to my left. Sally was dressed in a sleek, modern-cut navy blue skirt suit, paired with a crisp white blouse underneath. The outfit suited her figure perfectly, and as usual, the skirt was just that bit shorter than what most would consider business appropriate. She looked good, just as she always did. Her style balanced between confident and daring, even within the confines of office wear. She was rather petite, probably under 5 feet, but her curvy figure and full chest made her presence hard to miss. It was clear she knew how to make an impression, both in the boardroom and beyond. I turned my attention back to my own reflection, quickly brushing a bit of stray hair back into place. As nervous as I was, her distraction worked in my favor. I just needed a few more moments, and then maybe I could slip away without her noticing anything unusual. I tried to focus on breathing steadily, keeping my hands steady as I adjusted my lipstick slightly, pretending to be as nonchalant as possible. Sally's navy blue 3-inch heels not only gave her a bit of extra height, but also emphasized her heart-shaped rear, enhancing her already striking figure. And then, of course, there was her hair, a fiery red mane that contrasted beautifully with her creamy white skin, making her impossible to ignore. She always knew how to turn heads, whether in a boardroom or a bar. Trying to steady myself, I responded with a smile. "No, you look great. Just maybe lose a few buttons on your blouse and add some more makeup, and you'll be good to go for the bars." I couldn't believe what was happening. Here I was, dressed as a woman, casually giving beauty advice to one of the senior executives. If Sally realized who I was, it could be the end of my career. But somehow, I managed to keep up the charade, despite the rising anxiety bubbling inside me. "Oh, thanks," Sally replied warmly, not suspecting a thing. Then she asked, "Could I borrow some eyeliner? I don't keep any at work." My stomach did a flip. I hadn't expected the conversation to go this far, but what choice did I have? I quickly fumbled through my makeup bag and handed her a small pencil. "Sure, here you go," I said, hoping that my hands didn't shake too much as I passed it to her. She smiled gratefully, taking the eyeliner as if this were the most normal exchange in the world. Meanwhile, I was still in disbelief, feeling like I was tiptoeing along a very thin line. "Sure," I replied, silently kicking myself for even bringing up makeup. I rummaged through my makeup bag and handed Sally the eyeliner, keeping my focus on the mirror, pretending to be engrossed in perfecting my own appearance. As she concentrated on applying the eyeliner, I used the moment to calm my nerves and adjust my hair, trying to keep my hands steady. Once she was finished, Sally passed the eyeliner back, and I quickly fumbled it into my makeup bag without turning away too much. My heart was still racing, but it felt like I was almost in the clear. "Right, I better get going," I said casually, still avoiding eye contact, hoping I could slip away smoothly. "Oh, me too. I'm about done in here," Sally replied with a hint of a smile. "Thanks again for the eyeliner." "No problem," I muttered, feeling like I was on the edge of a cliff. As we both turned to leave, the inevitable happened. Our paths crossed, and for an instant, I looked directly at Sally. My breath caught in my throat. Her eyes met mine, but there was no flicker of recognition, just a polite, casual acknowledgement. I forced a small smile, turned quickly, and headed for the door, the sound of my heels clicking against the tile floor matching hers. My pulse was still racing as we exited the bathroom together, but the immediate panic began to ebb as I realized I might have just pulled it off. As I opened the door and stepped into the corridor, the feeling of relative freedom washed over me. I could still sense Sally right behind me, though, and I wasn't out of the woods yet. "Looks like you're on for a big one," she commented, her voice light as she followed me out. "What are you planning?" I stammered, my mind scrambling for a believable answer. I'm meeting some friends in town, and we're heading down to London," I mumbled, keeping my voice steady but inwardly cringing at how awkward I sounded. "Aha," she replied, her tone slightly curious but nonchalant. "Well, you have fun," she added, turning her attention back to her own plans. I nodded quickly and turned to go, heart racing, thinking I'd made it, until I heard her voice call out after just 3 steps. "Excuse me," Sally's tone was polite but firm. I froze mid-step. "I hate to do this, really I do, but you do work here, don't you?" A cold rush of panic shot through me. I turned slowly, trying to keep my expression calm, even though my heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. Yeah," I said carefully, feeling the weight of her gaze on me. She looked at me for a moment, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if she were trying to place me. I had to think fast. How much did she know? Would she connect the dots? "Sure," I replied as casually as I could, though every fiber of my being was screaming in panic. Down in the finance office with Sue, I added, hoping the mention of a name would help me sound more convincing. Sally tilted her head slightly, still looking curious. "Oh, right. I haven't seen you around much. Are you new?" "Yeah," I nodded, doing my best to look relaxed, even though my stomach felt like it was in knots. "I transferred from the northern branch about 3 months ago." "Ah, right, I see." She seemed to be processing this, and then there was another long, uncomfortable pause. I felt my heart begin to sink again just as she spoke up. "Sorry to do this, but can I see your ID? We've had a few security breaches recently, and you can never be too careful." My stomach dropped, and I felt my mouth go dry. My face, however, was forced into a polite, almost practiced smile. "No problem," I replied, my voice steady even if my insides were chaos. I squatted down next to my weekend bag, making a big show of rummaging through it, pretending to search for my ID. My thoughts were racing desperately. What was I going to do now? There was no way I could show her my real ID. It would instantly reveal who I was, and the disguise would be blown. As I kept digging around in my bag, I mentally willed myself to find some kind of way out. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I came up empty-handed and looked back at Sally with an apologetic shrug. "Sorry, I must have lost it somewhere," I said, trying to project confidence, though I felt like my voice might crack. "Maybe left it in my other bag, or back at the finance office." Sally didn't immediately respond, and I could see her considering my words. I kept my expression neutral, hoping she'd let this slide, while bracing for whatever came next. "Right," Sally said with a sigh, her tone sounding resigned but firm. Then she added, "Well, would you mind coming with me while we sort all this out?" Panic flared again, but I forced a calm smile. "Sure, but I do have to go soon, you know," I replied, trying to sound casual, even as every instinct screamed for me to find a way out of this. "Yes, this will all get sorted quickly, one way or another," she answered, her words carrying an unsettling weight. Feeling like I was falling through some bizarre dream, I followed Sally back through the office, past my desk, and towards her executive suite on the far side. Each step felt heavier than the last, my mind whirling with every possible scenario. I'd never been inside her office before. I'd only ever seen glimpses from a hallway when the door was open. Stepping inside, I was struck by how much nicer it was compared to the cramped, impersonal workspace in the drones section, as we all called it. Sally's office had large windows along one side, offering a view of the meticulously landscaped grounds that surrounded the building. The natural light softened the room, making it feel almost serene, an odd contrast to the mounting tension inside me. Sally walked around her sleek desk and motioned to a chair in front of it. "Please have a seat," she said, her voice cool but polite. I hesitated for a moment, then slowly sat down, my mind racing to figure out how to navigate this situation. Sally sat across from me, folding her hands on the desk. "Let's get to the bottom of this," she said, looking at me with a calm yet calculating expression. Sally's office was impressive, to say the least. A large, imposing desk dominated one corner, positioned in front of a wall lined with books and files. It felt like the intellectual center of the room, a place where decisions were made and strategies formed. In the opposite corner, a low coffee table surrounded by 6 easy chairs hinted at a more relaxed setting, no doubt where important deals and discussions unfolded. The rest of the office was minimalist but elegant. Large foliage plants were strategically placed around the room, adding a touch of greenery that softened the professional atmosphere. The contrast between Sally's high-backed, black leather office chair and the standard chair on the other side of the desk, where I was clearly meant to sit, couldn't have been more striking. One seat symbolized authority, the other subordination. Sally moved behind the desk, her movements deliberate, and settled into her chair. She exuded the calm confidence of someone used to being in control. Once she was seated, she motioned for me to take the chair opposite her. I hesitated only for a fraction of a second, then quietly sat down, trying to keep my nerves in check. The plush chair beneath me was deceptively comfortable, but it did little to ease the growing tension. As I faced Sally, her cool, composed gaze met mine. She folded her hands on the desk, the space between us suddenly feeling more like an interrogation room than an office. "So," she began, her voice measured, "let's clear up this little mystery, shall we?" "Both then," Sally said, her eyes not leaving mine. "Sorry, what did you say your name was?" "Cheryl. I blurted out instinctively. Sally raised an eyebrow slightly but didn't seem fazed. "All right, Cheryl. We need to find your ID quickly, or get you cross-checked with security. What's it going to be?" Her words hung heavy in the air. By now, I'd all but resigned myself to the inevitable, losing my job, my reputation, and possibly worse. It was either face the humiliation now, alone with Sally, or deal with it in front of her and a group of security guards. The second option seemed infinitely worse, but both felt like a sinking ship. I tried to swallow, but my throat was dry, as if all the moisture had evaporated from my body. My mind was spinning, scrambling for some kind of clever way out, but the walls felt like they were closing in. Then, like a light bulb flickering on, an idea hit me. It was risky, but at this point, I had nothing left to lose. "Sally, wait," I said, forcing a small, nervous smile. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice as if sharing a secret. I didn't want to say anything because, well, you know how gossip is in this place. But the truth is, this isn't exactly an official visit. I paused, hoping my bluff was enough to buy me time. I'm helping organize a surprise for one of the higher-ups, and I'm supposed to be a little incognito. It's why I don't have my ID on me right now. I watched her closely, praying that the story was just plausible enough. "I am sorry, but the truth is, I'm just here to fill in for Jesse," I said, my voice dropping to a timid whisper. "He's a close friend, and he needed me to finish some of his work today. He did me a big favor a few weeks ago, so I thought I'd help him out. He had some personal matters to attend to. I'm really sorry." My throat tightened as I added, "I shouldn't have done this. Please, don't call security." Sally's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing slightly as she processed my words. I braced myself, wondering if this new attempt would crumble just like the others. Then, unexpectedly, she exhaled sharply. "Well, why didn't you say that before?" she exclaimed, though not unkindly. "I know Jesse, not personally, but I've heard a lot about him. He's a good worker. If he called you in, it must have been for something important." I was stunned for a moment, unsure how to respond. She was buying it. I could hardly believe it. All I could do was nod, grateful that my panicked lie had somehow managed to stick. Sally's demeanor softened, and she leaned back in her chair, relaxing slightly. "Look, I'm not happy with how you went about this, but Jesse's reputation gives you some leeway here. Next time, though, you need to be upfront. Understand?" I nodded again, forcing a tight smile. "Of course. I really appreciate your understanding." "Good," she said, her voice lighter now. "I won't call security this time, but don't let this happen again." I breathed a sigh of relief, my heart still racing but with a new surge of hope. For now, I was in the clear. I couldn't believe it. Sally had actually bought my story. I felt a brief flicker of pride at how smoothly I'd managed to escape the situation. She hadn't recognized me, hadn't questioned anything too deeply. It was almost surreal. Sally stood up from her desk, her earlier sternness replaced by a gentler tone. "You can go now," she said, a softness in her voice that I hadn't expected. "Thank you so much," I replied, doing my best to sound sincere. "Have a nice weekend," she added casually, as if the past few tense minutes had never happened. We both walked out of her office together, and the moment I stepped into the hallway, I finally let myself breathe again. I walked briskly, trying not to look like I was fleeing, but inside, I was practically running. It wasn't until I was out in the corridor, and then finally outside the building, that I allowed the tension to fully release. I checked my watch. There was still time to meet up with my friends. What an afternoon this had turned out to be. As I stepped away from the office, feeling the fresh air against my face, I couldn't help but let out a shaky laugh. I had made it. Somehow, through a blur of panic and improvisation, I had made it through.